Recording in progress.
Most days I wish I could. I still work for the company. So it's, I'm still, yeah, big one. Stairs. Gotta clear it. It's not old, so now my hearing takes a little.
ACL. Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's a little after 1:30. My apologies for being just a little bit late. All right. So first, I would like to call the meeting to order. Second, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the October 26th meeting as presented.
I so move.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. Motion by Dan, second by Doug. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approve, same sign. Anyone abstaining? Okay. Second, we would like to set a public hearing date for the Etna Green and South Shore Villages. Who wants to talk about this? Adam, is that you? Into your mic, please, and turn it on.
We are looking at setting that public hearing for January 3rd at 1:30 and 2 o'clock, and notices will go out to the papers and the overlapping tax sections.
And that will be handled by our auditor, correct? The notices?
Well, yes. I will provide the notices to her for distribution. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so public hearing dates will be set for January 3rd at 1:30 PM and 2 o'clock PM. Okay, can I have a motion to do that, please?
I'll make a motion.
Second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Thanks for all your work on that, too. All right, we're up to KEDCO update.
Good afternoon. Greg Fitzloff, KEDCO. A variety of things I just wanted to kind of touch on today, and then I think we'll have time to get into some specific projects. I know at the last meeting, we talked about some of the housing projects, and I thought probably this is a good time to just take a couple of minutes, and Alan not being here, I can talk a little bit about Alan that way, and I'd go back a few years. I think some of you that were here at that time remember 4 years ago, when Alan started, it was kind of a transition period for KEDCO. And Kedco had been in existence for a number of years, but had been at a little bit of a slower pace, and some people would say almost an idle. When the new Kedco started, we needed to spend some time getting the process started, both in terms of projects and capacity. And so really, I think sometimes over the last 4 years, we maybe haven't done a great job of explaining how we're building both that pipeline of projects, but also the capacity to deal with them. A couple of analogies, the pipeline, which we're putting projects in, and as those projects start and they go through the pipeline in certain stages in the pipeline, and then they come out as completed projects in the end. But in the meantime, there may be many, many projects going through that at various stages that we're dealing with, that we're talking with groups like this about, et cetera, and getting them to the next step. The other thing at the same time that we're doing is building capacity, because as we end up with more projects, we simply have more to deal with at any one time. And over that period of time, not only have we added that capacity, but specifically because we've got more projects that are in the pipeline and beginning to come out. And I think a couple of years ago, I remember having that conversation with Jan about, gee, what's going on? What's going on? Why aren't we seeing more things? Da 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 da. And it's because they weren't at that point. We've now kind of got to the point where we started to identify how many of those projects, where they are, put them in order. Had a meeting yesterday where we identified, and we've talked about it, we've got 31 housing projects throughout the county that we're dealing with, in one fashion or another, tracking. We've got 58 existing industry company projects that are in that pipeline that we're dealing with, and 38 attraction projects. So right now, over that period of time, what we've done is we've pushed 120 some projects into that pipeline that we're actively working with, watching, moving along through there, and we're, quite frankly, starting to see them obviously come out the other end. Some of those projects are the ones we're going to talk about today: South Shore, Etna Green, Aaron's Trimble Creek Energy Project, things of that sort. So just wanted to take the time to kind of point that out. When we have that many projects, we probably started out, if you will, with a capacity. Again, I can use a silly analogy of we probably had a vehicle as an organization that was used to going 20 or 30 miles an hour. As we've added capacity, as you've seen these new people, including my colleague Terry Sweeney, who you met before, we've been able to increase the speed at which we can deal with those projects. Maybe now we're up to a vehicle that can go 60 miles an hour. What we really need to do is get that vehicle to the ability to get through 75, maybe 90, don't want to, no law enforcement, but maybe it'll go 100 miles an hour at some point. But the ability to churn out those projects. And what that really means is that we're looking not only at projects today, but a project next year and the year after and the year after. And in that pipeline, we can identify a significant amount of projects that we're dealing with right now. The two projects we're going to talk about today, which effectively become 2023 projects. And we've probably got 35 or 40 of those that will show up in more of a public setting in 2023. But we've also got projects that we have in our pipeline right now that we look at and we see those are 2024 projects, not because we can't get to them, but because it'll take that long. We've got some that are 2025 projects. Dan, as we talked, got a project that will probably have 2 stages, one of which is a expansion project of a local company, And that will turn also into a housing project at some point. Now, that may again be 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road before we see the full fruition of that. It also explains, hopefully, a little bit about it's kind of the conversation that we had last month about sometimes we're going to appear to be pushing. And we certainly respect the fact that those are your decisions. You take them as you can and as is appropriate. At the same time, we're probably looking at the fact that, oops, as soon as that's done, we've got another one and another one. I think in this case, we'll deal with the residential TIFs, those two, in the first quarter. But also, we've already got 3 ready to go that we'll probably be bringing to you early in '23. So there'll be another 3 coming up and probably 2 more. So we'll probably have 5 more housing projects coming to you at some point in time in some fashion during that time. So it's a case of moving those along, not because we're trying to push anything, but because we know that, oops, you have to have time to go through those and get ready for hopefully the next one and the next one and the next one. So that's the good news. I mean, the good news is that level of activity that maybe wasn't there 2 or 3 years ago, certainly we're going to see the pace pick up and we're going to move along. The same with industry announcements, projects. We'll have another one by the end of the year in the northern part of the county, new manufacturing firm that employs roughly 100 new people in manufacturing positions. And again, one that we've been dealing with. That project will start out as an attraction project. Then it will morph in a couple of years into a expansion project as they build a new facility. And then the facility they're leaving, there will be another company moving into that facility that's already in line to move in. So we can look at that in probably, again, 2025 before you see the whole network of that, but we certainly expect that'll end up adding several hundred new jobs probably to the market at that point in time. That brings us back to the housing because we identify how many homes are needed now, how many residential units. We know that as we continue to grow and expand, we'll need even more, and we'll continue to move that along. We really do appreciate the fact that you have been so willing and accommodating. Madam Chair, your willingness to make those changes, work with us on those, that's extraordinarily important to us to be able to move these projects. And I think it also sends a strong message to the developers, the ones that are here and hopefully the ones that are listening, that the county is willing to work with them and do it because this has become truly a county-wide effort. I think we have projects, 14, I think I counted 14 different communities in the county at this point. I kind of chuckle. I think that there's a community in the county that has a post office. We've been in that community and we probably have a project going in and around that community at this point. So even though they aren't always ones that we're ready to stand up and announce. They aren't ones that we can tell our friends in the media necessarily about at this point in time. We do want you to know that there is a lot of activity and a lot of things that are going on, and your continued support is very, very much appreciated.
Well, we appreciate what you're doing also, and we understand the need for not, I don't want to say secrecy, but the need to not let everyone know what's going on because companies are very careful that the word does not get out, especially, I know I've worked in that area before, so we understand that you can't always share everything that's going on. Would this be a good time to have Dan tell us about our meeting with South Shore Villages?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Is your mic on and hold it close to your mouth?
It is on. Yeah, we had a meeting with the 2 gentlemen sitting over here. doing the South Shore project. And they did a very good job convincing us that they are two people with both feet on the ground, willing to make it work with little changes here and there. And they want to start with 100 lots to put housing on it. And then a small an area where they're talking to Lakeland Youth Center and such organizations so they can have activities at the same time there. I made it as short as I could, but that's,
You did a good job, Dan. Okay, the two gentlemen are here today with us.
Yeah.
Did you want to say anything? No?
So we've met Jeff, but I don't know that we've met Nate.
Come on, Nate.
yeah.
Introduce yourself. Speak into the mic, please.
Hold my mouth close. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
So I'm Nathan Shearer with South Shore Ventures. I've met many of you. It seems like I haven't had as much with the three gentlemen here, but yeah, as Dan said, we're really working hard at creating something that could be transformational for the community, not only on the housing front, but also on the commercial front. We have a strong desire to help create a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem and startup community in that area, taking advantage of a lot of the Industry 4.0 initiatives that are critical to the future of industrial growth in our area and across the country. A lot of exciting things and meetings that we've had recently in that front. And actually, I just came from one on my way here that was very favorable. So got a lot of exciting things that we're working on, and we appreciate the support that we've seen so far and the enthusiasm behind this project. And we look forward to seeing it come to fruition sooner than later.
Thank you. All right. Does anybody have any questions? They're doing more than housing. They're also going to bring in businesses and have recreational activities. They're actually, the end goal is to build a community within the community. Okay. And I just wanted to pass around those. I do have examples of floor plans and houses that the developer that they're working with may build. It just depends on how that all works out in the end. They're still in preliminary stages, but at least they have a developer, so that's a good thing. Okay. Greg, did you want to say anything else?
Oh, yeah, I think it's.
You said they have a developer. Do you mean they have a builder?
Yes.
Is that okay to mention? Yeah, residential builder, Schrock Homes.
Okay, fantastic.
So, again, on South Shore, Greg Fitzloff again, on South Shore, see, I'm learning, I'm trainable at least. South Shore Villages, we talked about it last month in terms of the schedule, the resolutions, et cetera. Been working with Adam and really appreciate Adam getting some documentation out over the last few weeks we always give him less time than we really should, so Adam, thank you. We know. Terry and I did meet with the Wawasee School Board earlier this week and kind of presented the project in a very brief format to them. We were not asking them for any definitive action at this point. And they, quite frankly, given the fact that it was Tuesday night, it was election, and 2 out of the 3 school board members that were there weren't going to be on the school board anymore. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. So we'll be taking that resolution back to them. I would really anticipate in January to move that along. And they did ask a number of questions, but I think they have had experience with residential TIFs before, so I think we're where we need to be on that particular project. In the case of Etna Green, we have sent the documents and sample resolution to the superintendent. And again, thanks to Adam getting those out in a timely fashion, we were able to get that to them. And we will be at the school board meeting in Triton, or in Bourbon for the Triton schools next Monday evening to get that hopefully approved and move ahead with that project. It's more just getting those things checked off the list. We know we're going to have to do them. We'd like to get those out of the way as they're appropriate. Again, just as a quick update to kind of refer to it, we've scheduled another meeting in the southern part of the county for a couple more housing projects. We're meeting with the superintendent of Tippy Valley School Corporation. The week after next, I guess, is when we set that meeting up to kind of get him prepared. They're very supportive of projects. We've been looking at property, that part of the county, so really that should go fairly well. They're eager to look at some projects down there, but in those cases, Mentone and actually conceivably it'd be the town of Akron, neither of them have redevelopment commissions, so they would both come back to the county redevelopment commissions. I saw that look on your face. Akron is going to be an interesting one. Obviously Akron's in Fulton County. The property may very well be in Kosciuszko County.
Okay.
So it is an interesting question because we again get to be first. Nobody's ever dealt with that in terms of a residential TIF, in terms of, okay, if the property is in one county and the town is in another, which county redevelopment commission actually has control? So we'll get to that as we get to it and actually see, but those are.
Does Akron have its own, or would it be Fulton in that case?
It would
Kinda
be Fulton.
Like we're doing with that.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. So, and Mentone doesn't have one either, so it would be, this. So that, as we identify the property and get that a little further along, but I think we're moving those along in all parts of the county. But
Okay.
any questions otherwise?
You have a question? You look like you're thinking.
Well, no, we've had a brief discussion, Greg, and I spoke with Jeff as well. When you met with the school district related to the TIF and how it impacts the school district, are you finding that they're fairly knowledgeable on the impact of a TIF as it relates to their budget?
No.
Okay.
They are kind of all over the board. There are some that are more knowledgeable than others. In some cases, they're realistic about it in the sense of whatever tax base is created by a residential development certainly is normally overshadowed by the amount of dollars that they would be getting in by additional students. It's simply working that through, and as Jeremy was at meetings last year, points out that, yeah, it's not an equal trade. They have some costs with each student, et cetera, but I think in most of the districts that we're dealing with, they're primarily concerned about maintaining their enrollment or increasing their enrollment, so they're comfortable. That doesn't mean that they're thrilled. Around the state, there are a lot of school systems and a lot of school boards that have a lot more concerns because they are facing ever-increasing enrollments, and the idea of more kids doesn't necessarily appeal to them as much because for them, they have to not only add staff, but conceivably add buildings, et cetera. So those are slightly different situations. In these areas, school corporations, I think they've been generally supportive. I think it may depend in a couple of cases exactly where the project is. But they haven't ever dealt with a residential TIF before, so they may be slightly knowledgeable about other TIFs, but that, I think, at Wawasee, there was a specific request from one of the school board members when we come back to take the time to explain how the TIF works. Obviously, when we get the tax impact studies from Baker Tilly on these projects, that will identify, and I think that will resolve a lot of concerns, because they never get less money than they are getting now. They always get the base value that they're getting off of that land now. It's simply the increment that they don't share in for the life of that TIF, which, and as you well know, you have the option every year of looking at each one of your TIFs and releasing some of that revenue to those other taxing districts if you're not using it within that district. So that's, that's an option you always have somewhere down the road for any of these projects. So,
I wouldn't expect you to know all the details, Greg, but in the communities that are more rural, so I'm thinking outside of Warsaw specifically, do most of the schools have capacity, or is their enrollment stable or on a decline, or are they at capacity?
none of them are at capacity at this point. Some of them, and even in Warsaw, it's from school to school. For example, in Warsaw, if you go out, the West Side Madison School is at capacity. On the other hand, if you go north to Leesburg, they have a lot of capacity there. Claypool has a lot of capacity. So I think even in the rural areas, it kind of depends exactly what you're talking about. But in the case of Triton, those Etna Green kids would be going to Triton. There is significant capacity there. They don't see that as any problem. In the case of Wawasee, again, with North Shore, again, what those numbers would be, but the middle school, which is obviously very close by, has significant capacity at this point. For Milford, obviously, there's capacity at Milford for both elementary and middle school. So I would hope that at some point in the future, we can come back and say, yeah, we've got a capacity issue. Right now, it doesn't appear that we do.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, next up on our agenda is the Trimble Creek Energy Project. Aaron Sponseller is here to talk about that. He's been working with KEDCO. We had a meeting with several economic development people and county leaders. Marcia was there, I was there, Sue Ann was there, and NIPSCO was there in force. It's a very interesting project, which he's going to give us an overview of, but we're also working with Representative Snow and Senator Stacy Donato, trying to look at some funding sources, and also NIPSCO is being very stubborn, is that a good word, on what they expect from this project. And that was the reason for the meeting, was to see if they would move off of .0. So, Aaron, I'll turn it over to you.
I guess just the highlights, it's going to be an anaerobic digester, which will use manure from our farm and other local farms. And will make renewable natural gas, which will be pumped into the pipeline and sold potentially to California at this point. And we'll also make, we'll take all the nutrients out of the fertilizer and be able to have, sellable nutrients. Well, so we'll pretty much have dirty water when we're done and have nitrogen and phosphate and, separate products that we can sell, which will help, obviously the nutrient load near the buildings and give us opportunities for organic sales where they have trouble with finding fertilizer without having the phosphate loads on their fields.
Can you explain the California? Sorry, but I watched your face go, what is he talking about? It's a very interesting story.
Okay, in California, when you sell, this would offset diesel fuel. You have to have so many, they're called credits, for lack of a better term. Low carbon fuel credits, exactly what they're called. You have to have so many of those credits to offset your fuel sales in California. And so this would, diesel fuel, has a 60 carbon intensity score. So this one would have like a negative, I'm hoping 200, 250 or 300. So we'll say it's a negative 300 and the diesel 60. So for every 5 gallons of diesel fuel they sell, they would have to have 1 gallon of renewable natural gas. I'm not exactly sure how the math works on that, how they do it, but it's more, I mean, big picture, it's a carbon offset for California petroleum products, I guess is the basic and simple way to say it.
And then just, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically NIPSCO is insisting on a 16-inch diameter pipe all the way to Warsaw?
No, they're insisting I go to the 16-inch pipe, which they just built here. I guess that'd be, west of town? West of town a couple years ago, even though there's 3 other ones within 2 to 3 miles of the digester site that they're not allowing me to use. They're making me come all the way to Warsaw. And I get to pay for it and give it to them as soon as it's done. It's a pretty sweet deal for NIPSCO. But,
Was it that you also maintained it?
oh yeah, I have to pay to maintain it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good gig for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's one of the reasons why the state legislators are trying to work with NIPSCO to see if there are any other options, or so far, they've made no headway, so, but we're still hopeful that maybe they will be able to.
The projected cost?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's in there. 30 to 35 million.
Okay.
And it should gross 10 to 12 million. And that's just on the gas side. I'm not exactly sure how much I'm gonna make selling fertilizer because no one's ever combined these manures like I'm going to. So no one actually knows what's gonna come out, if that makes any sense. I mean, I could have a base idea, but I don't know the exact until I know the analysis of the fertilizer I make.
And my question was specific to that pipeline, the pipe
Yes.
coming up. The cost to bring the pipe from Mentone is the
Is the $10 million.
10 million. Okay, thank you.
And he gets to maintain it after he gives it to them.
And I get to give them an acre of ground too, you can't forget that.
Yeah,
That's-
oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, he has to give them ground too. Our public utilities at work, you can use that line if you'd like to. Just blows my mind. Okay, in full disclosure, Aaron is my nephew. His mother is my husband's sister.
Yes, correct.
Thought I'd clarify that, so I will not be voting on this. Unfortunately.
But at least we know he has good genes.
Aww. Well, his mom's one of my best friends, so yeah. Anyway,
That may
but,
say more about you than me, Joni.
no, okay. I don't know. Anyway, so, but I'm doing what I can to support you on the backside, so. But I wanted him to come and at least explain the project to you, because in the future, he's looking at requesting a TIF district to help offset some of this, plus the IEDC, Indiana Economic Development Corp., is the ones that may be able to help with the bond issue at a lower interest rate than he would be able to receive at a local financial institution. So that's part of this equation, is trying to figure out, because this is a renewable energy source, it fits into a different category than, say, housing or some of the other things. And I just wanted him to present so that when he comes back for the TIF, at least you have some knowledge of this and it's not just. Make sense? Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, actually, if you get an opportunity to chat with him and dive into it a little bit more. It's a very fascinating project, for sure. And we're fortunate that he's looking to do this in the county.
It looks interesting. I guess I'm wondering how you get this much product to your place to transport it in.
A lot of the swine manure will be my own. The chicken manure will be Creighton Brothers in full disclosure. And the dairy manure will be another local farmer, and so will the duck manure. I mean, everything will be within 5 or 6 miles, I would guess, is where. And a lot of the swine manure, actually, the digester site's about a mile away from where our hog barns are at. It'll actually be pumped. So there'll be no transportation on that.
It's interesting. I don't want to take up time, but I guess I'm involved in agricultural transportation. They don't like the smell of this type of stuff that's on the paper. But I'll talk to you some other time.
Well, the good thing
about
is, once it's through the digester, there's no smell, so that is a positive.
it. Yeah, it's just got to get to that
Just got to
point.
get there.
And this is the old Kralis facility, if some of you that have been around a while. It was a poultry
Processing plant.
thank you. So that facility has sat empty for years, and it's trying to do something creative with that.
And what is happening to the manure that you'll be digesting
It'll-
currently?
Currently, what we're doing with it, it's being applied to fields. A lot of it's sold, but
Okay, yeah, and I'm talking about the duck, the dairy, the chicken, because I mean, again, I see that as a benefit to the county, right? Because you have these sewer lagoons or whatever that, I live by one, I smell on a warm summer day. But, so, I mean, the thought of having it used in production of renewable energy is terrific.
and
So-
anything that goes through this, it won't go into the lagoons. It'll be pumped straight from the barns. That's one of the things that makes it qualify for the California project, is if you don't use the lagoons, it doesn't pollute as much to the state of California if you don't have lagoons. It doesn't make sense to me, and so the manure would never actually see the current lagoons we have. I mean, potentially we might use them post-digester, but there'll be no smell then after that, so there's no odor issues.
Yeah, that's great.
It's going to California through the pipelines, correct?
Yes, it's probably never going to leave Costasco County in full disclosure, but yes, on paper, it will
Thank
go to
you.
California, yes.
Yeah, that's what I guess I wanted you to say, because that was
It's a credit.
interesting to me. What?
It's a credit.
It's a
They're
credit.
buying a credit. They're not
Okay.
buying a commodity.
Yeah, they don't really want the product, they just want the credit. Okay, Dan, were you gonna?
So
You're
would we
good.
TIF the line itself to your tap as well?
Yes, they're going to try, and then
All the way wherever it
in the,
ends up running?
the acre I give them, the injection point, it's called a
Yep.
tap of that.
Yeah.
And then also, well, we'll try to TIF some other stuff, because I have some other stuff in the pipeline, but,
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead and just tell them, Aaron.
oh, well, what do you want to say, Gary?
Well, and again, we're in that, we're kind of in that what if
I am
stage.
the mic person, this is
Yes,
my whole
okay.
job, is to push the mic.
And I thought I was trained now, I'm sorry. I think the overall goal on this project is to involve the state, and ideally probably the State Revolving Loan Fund, to provide a long-term, low-interest loan for the pipeline or the entire project. That would give us two things: a lower interest rate and the long-term, conceivably out to a 30, 35-year financing, which makes a huge difference, obviously, in what is available in the private market. And secondly, then to come back and that would fund the building of the project, and then paying off the loan becomes part of the TIF responsibility in terms of now you've got a $10.5 million pipeline that's actually owned by a utility, and they're paying their taxes. So get that number, and then it may be, in order to make that work, we may come back and look at TIFing the base facility also in order to generate some of the tax revenue in order to make that bond payment. So we're jumping way ahead of where we are now because we just don't know what those numbers and/or loan package might look like. But I think that's the path we're looking at going down. We've got to figure out some way to have this Aaron project recoup that $10+ million that he's got to pay for a pipeline. I think, even one of the things we talked about, and I have to compliment Aaron. When we went out and I sat down with him, I wasn't sure how far along in terms of planning this out he was, and he's way ahead. I think I told you probably 90. Of the people I normally talk to about a project, he was well beyond 90% of them in terms of the work he's already done and played this out. So it makes it much easier to move ahead with this. the situation really comes down to how do we fund that pipeline as part of the larger project, and what kind of revenue stream are we going to see off of it? And I'm very optimistic at this point in time that we're going to be able to come up and make those numbers work with that project. And obviously, Aaron has spent enough time, and he's really serious about it. So I think if we can make those numbers work, we've got a really exciting project.
This has been 2 years that he's worked on it before he reached out for help with Kedco and started talking to other, and he also has, Farm Bureau is very interested in it. They've been working with him, correct?
Yeah.
And Louis Dreyfus.
Yeah.
So-
Aaron, I don't remember, the 10 million, did that include the construction costs that you're paying NIPSCO to put it in? Because they're the ones that are gonna
Yeah,
put the line in too.
The
right?
actual bid was like 10.8 million, I think, but there was $1 million contingency in there. So I just put 10 to make it a nice round, even number, but
So the path of that pipeline, is that following any particular
the
road
way
easement?
the way I understand it is they'll take it down 200 south, east, 8-ish miles into Warsaw is the way I understand.
So I'm just thinking of a TIF, if the generated, the income or revenue generated by the TIF is the incremental value of the land, I mean, bearing a
But
pipe.
you're also you're capturing the personal property for NIPSCO once he turns it over. So it's the value of that as well. I say that right, Michelle? Yeah.
It's good.
And if I could add, this will be a new one because this will be considered a state utility as NIPSCO is a state assessed utility. So the state actually reports to the auditor's office the assessment of these. So working with NIPSCO and making sure this is always reported to us separately. So
Okay.
we know the exact amount of the assessed value of the state utility, I think is going to be a challenge. But when we create the TIF, part of the declaratory resolution will say, this is to include the state utility that we are running, so it will include the personal property. So I don't
okay,
know if we're looking to capture the actual real estate, because I would assume that would be right away mostly,
Yeah.
which is not taxed, but it would probably be mostly the state assessed utility
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because nor would I think that the
Right.
property value
Personal
would.
property, yeah.
It's really the personal property.
It's personal property. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that makes more sense, because I'm thinking the ground's not gonna become exceedingly more valuable because you put a pipe.
I mean, the project itself is going to
The,
create,
yeah,
Yes.
the Crayless property and the
Yeah.
digester and all that.
Yes,
kind
of course,
stuff,
yes. Okay.
if that's
And
all.
some additional adjacent property.
Yeah.
Yeah, a guy's reached out to me about putting a greenhouse, like piggybacking on with this project. And it may go on adjacent property just based on logistics and the way the ground lays. So I'd like to include that, just who knows what the future holds, I guess.
And the current hog complex
Yes,
that you
because we
own.
would expand our hog facility if we built the digester. So yes, there'd be more hog facilities for the tax base.
Okay, any other questions?
Makes sense.
Okay, well, we're very excited. We'll follow this, and I'm sure you'll be back.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. Okay, next. Approval of 2023 meeting dates. First, I have a question. Does Thursdays work for everyone? That's the dates that are listed at 1:30?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then I would need a motion to approve the 2023 meeting dates as provided by Michelle. And they are all on Thursdays with the exception of the January 3rd, which is a Tuesday. We are required by law to hold a meeting on the first working day of the year. So it's typically always a Tuesday at 1:30 to start off our year. And so I will need a motion to approve those as presented.
I so move.
Thank you. A second?
Second?
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right. Thank you very much. Now, do we have any further business to come before the Redevelopment Commission? Michelle, you have something for us?
I just have one thing. As you noticed, all of these dates are in 2023, and you will have a new auditor supporting you in 2023. So this is my last public meeting with this redevelopment commission. So I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for your leadership and your insight in allowing me to grow as an auditor. And it has been my pleasure to serve, and I hope I can continue that in the future. Excuse my cold.
Personally, I would like to thank you, and I think you deserve a standing ovation to you and your department for
My
everything
department,
you do.
yes. My department, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. And
You
that
will
would
be
it.
truly missed.
Thank you.
You are appreciated more than you will ever know. She makes things easy for me. I'm really going to miss her. Okay, hopefully you're not going too far. All right, so, anything else? If not, I would consider a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, we may get up and leave. Thank you also, press, for being here today. Really appreciate it, and thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
Hi, Marcia.
And nobody wanted to talk in the record about it, can you comment on that, or? No. But you at least know of projects? Yeah. Are they coming in for sure, though?
No, it's one that's being dealt with, but it's not,
So it's
really
not,
premature.
it's not indefinite?
Right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that wasn't the one I mentioned.
No, I didn't think it was the one, but I just wanted to ask, because I tried people yesterday, too.
Yeah, this is one of those, I can neither confirm nor deny any such thing. No, it really is, on all of these projects, it's because of two things. Number one, if there are state incentives involved, the state basically says, okay, if we're gonna incentivize a project, we'll announce it on our schedule. And secondly, the company itself is, if it's coming from outside of the area,